Hello, welcome to Comcast Local Edition. I'm Amy Allison. Carmine Gallo is with us today, communications coach and author of a new book coming out in September, Fire Them Up. Now, Carmine, this book is to motivate the hordes of unmotivated workers and students and all
there are
that.
a lot of them, aren't there?
And so you're hoping to use communication to really have an effect on that.
Well, it seems as though Americans are uninspired. They really are. Only 10% of us look forward to going to work.
That is such a low and surprisingly low
People
number.
are disengaged. And in school, only 1 in 3 students will graduate from high school. In our communities, out of 172 democracies, we rank 139th when it comes to voter turnout.
Except when it's American Idol, of course.
Exactly. So people are discouraged and disillusioned. But I don't think it has to be that way. And as a communications coach, I deal with a lot of extraordinary individuals. Men and women who really have the ability to inspire, to motivate, and to positively influence everyone in their personal and professional lives. So I've spent the last year talking to more than 24 of these amazing individuals. I wanted to find out, what do you do? What are those techniques that you use to inspire others?
Now, are the techniques different for, let's say, a CEO of, I think Google was one of the companies that was highlighted as a, let's say, a teacher or a head of a community organization?
Well, I think the amazing thing, Amy, is that a lot of the techniques apply to whether you're trying to motivate employees or managers and trying to motivate their teams, or outside of the business world in terms of students, trying to motivate students, or even your children. Some of the same techniques really do apply.
Well, what's your top technique, and what's the thing that you found most effective?
Well, there are 7 techniques. The first one I think is very important, and it's one that I actually can't teach as a communications coach. It's ignite your enthusiasm. Not ignite their enthusiasm. It begins with you. You cannot inspire unless you're inspired yourself. I can teach rhetorical devices to make a presentation more effective. I can't teach you passion. Every single person in this book has an abundance of passion for what they do. There's one guy named Richard Tate who scribbled his idea on the back of a napkin. These things really happen. He scribbled the idea on the back of a napkin, and his enthusiasm was so contagious that he was able to win over partners, investors, employees, and he turned that company into Cranium, the board game company. Now they've got games and toys and children's books. But Amy, when you walk into their headquarters in Seattle, you are hit with a wave of fun and excitement and engagement by the employees, the likes of which you've never seen in any company in corporate America.
Does it boil down to really believing in what you do, or is it how you communicate what you believe? What's the crux of that?
You have to be passionate about what you do. You gotta love doing what you do every day, but you have to have the rhetorical devices, the language to motivate other people. You need to share those stories. One example that we have in the book that has done very well is at the Ritz-Carlton. We interview the CEO of the Ritz-Carlton, Simon Cooper. They have a very effective technique where they actually combine every department in every hotel, everywhere around the world, every division. Every day there's a 15-minute meeting, a lineup, where they share what are called wow stories. And these are stories of employees who exceed their guests' expectations. And so that does 2 things. One, it gives people local fame because it builds somebody up in front of their peers, which apparently is a very powerful motivator, I learned through the Ritz-Carlton. And secondly, it helps encourage values that they want to create and encourage throughout their organization. So he's passionate about what he does, the Simon Cooper, the CEO of the Ritz-Carlton, but how do you communicate that throughout all levels of the organization? That's one technique that they found effective. Other companies have other techniques, which I try to talk about.
Well, it's powerful being able to tell a good story. Thank you so much, Carmine, for coming by.
You're welcome.
And talking to us about your new book, Fire 'Em Up, available in September. And thanks to you for joining us today on Comcast Local Edition. Hello, welcome to Comcast Local Edition. I'm Amy Allison. With us is Carmine Gallo, who's the author of the upcoming book, Fire 'em Up, Fire Them Up, which is all about using communication to really get people more optimistic and more engaged.
To inspire them.
To inspire them.
To inspire, to help them inspire their customers, their colleagues, and even people outside of their professional business relationships, like students or athletes or their children.
Now here's the book, the cover of the book, Fire Them Up, 7 simple secrets to doing a number of things.
To inspire, and through inspiring you are able to sell yourself and your vision and your values to the people that you want to reach.
Now you came up with these secrets mainly by interviewing business leaders. Interviewing. For the last year, I have spent time with more than 25 men and women who are extraordinary business leaders, educators, entrepreneurs, but they all have an amazing ability to inspire and to positively influence everyone in their personal and professional lives. I wanted a piece of that. I wanted to find out what is it about you and the way you communicate to your staff or your employees or your team in a way that encourages their potential and really gets the most out of people. Now there was a trend in the last 10, 15 years where people who work in government, people who work in community-based organizations are looking at models that are set in the business world and trying to emulate them. Is it transferable? In other words, those secrets to engaging people and firing people up, are they the same, and would they work, let's say, in a high school with young people?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, one of the people who spent time with me for the book is a famous teacher named Ron Clark. And Ron Clark had a TV movie made out of him. Friends star Matthew Perry played him. It was called The Ron Clark Story, simple enough. And he took a class of 5th graders in Spanish Harlem. They were underperforming at the time. They were performing on a 2nd grade level. Within 1 season, they outperformed the gifted class. And if you flash forward to today, every one of the 37 students in that original class of his are still in high school. They are seniors. Not one has dropped out. In a system which the dropout rate is sky high. And he follows each and every one of those seven techniques that we lay out in the book. But all of it has to do with the way he communicated his values and his vision to those kids. And he helped them create a bigger vision for themselves through the language of motivation.
Interesting. So what do you think is, just really briefly, some key phrases that a leader would use in a language of motivation?
Well, I think optimism is very important. And all inspiring leaders are very optimistic. They're more optimistic than the rest of us. And you go back to a Winston Churchill, who always exuded hope and confidence and a fierce determination what he did. And then you go up to a little further, Ronald Reagan, who Colin Powell said that Reagan's optimism was a key to his charisma. And Colin Powell himself has said that optimism is a force multiplier. It has a ripple effect. When you speak to each of these people, you will notice that the language they use is always positive. It is always optimistic. There is always a better future. And that's how many of them can take, one store, one retail outlet, and create an empire out of it.
So people who are, let's say, someone who's watching this is a line manager in a company and is interested in helping to improve productivity, effectiveness. Is it possible to turn something around that's maybe something that's the culture is really negative or not too effective into something that's positive in a short period of time?
Absolutely. There are so many examples of that in the book. One is to invite participation, which is a very important technique. Ask for input, solicit input, listen to what people have to say, and incorporate that feedback. There was a hospital in Derby, Connecticut called Griffin Hospital. In the 80s, it was one of the worst hospitals in the entire country. By listening to people and asking for feedback from patients and staff, doctors and nurses, within a few years, they became one of the best hospitals in the country. Mm-hmm. They are a model for 200 other hospitals. And they are one of the best places to work by Fortune magazine. They talk about how to do it in this book.
All right, fire 'em up. Carmine Gallo is our guest today, and thank you for joining us on Comcast Local Edition.